This is beyond wild. What does the stock market do when faced with extreme uncertainties? I'm talking about the fact that seemingly no one on this planet knows what's going on with the trade war. No one knows what's happening with a massively impactful FOMC meeting this week. Oh yeah, and also that little uncertainty of the fact that there's a legit war between Iran and Israel right now. You know what the market does? It pops over an entire percent. Green across the board, the bulls somehow dominating. I'm talking they were down 3-1 and yet they still came out with a victory. Riddle me that, Batman. Obviously, in this video, we're going to be explaining all of the chaos. What happened today? Why did the market pop? What to pay attention to for the remainder of this week? And I even have a specialty thing for you at the end of this video. There's one ticker by the three little letters AMD that had a phenomenal day, and it's putting some extreme pressure on the bears. Putting extreme pressure on the shorts. But very quickly, before we get to all that, if you enjoy these type of market breakdowns, don't forget to like, subscribe, let me know what's going on in a comment below. With all that being said, let's rock. To kick off a fun-filled week of degeneracy in the world's largest casino, here's how things went today, Monday, June the 16th. Dow closes 300 points higher on cooling oil and hopes that Israel-Iran conflict will be contained. So across the board, actually pretty good. S&P 500 gaining 1%, which means we're within 2% of an all-time high. Yes, you heard me correctly. We are within 2% of an all-time high, even though everything is absolutely degenerating into chaos right now. We have the SPY gaining about 0.95, the Nasdaq up even more, about 1.4%, Bitcoin currently trading at 108, nice gain of almost 3%, and then yes, oil coming down, pretty much the major red thing on my watch list, dropping over 2%. I guess it's showing the market that things aren't as bad as maybe mainstream media wants to tell us. And if you want to know that for the individual stuff, yes, green on the entire heat map. The only red I see is really in healthcare and some energy stuff. But other than that, some of our favorites, large name, really tech related tickers, all very much in the green. And man, oh man, do we gotta talk about AMD. But before we do, let me give you a larger breakdown of what in the world is going on today. A battered Iran signals it wants to de-escalate hostilities with Israel and negotiate. Messages passed by Tehran through intermediaries seek a return to talks if the US stays out of the fight. So even though things are clearly boiling over, we're now in day 4 of it and missiles are still flying across the sky, we are getting the initial signs that this is going to most likely end sooner rather than later. Today also happened to be the start of the G7 summit, so of course President Trump was doing some live talks and answering some questions. Here's what he had to say on the matter.
Have you heard any signals or seen any messages from intermediaries that Iran wishes to de-escalate the conflict?
Yeah.
What have you heard? What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
So there you have it. Yes, things are still pretty bad. Tensions are pretty high, but obviously the market is a forward-looking mechanism. And based on the news that's being reported, it sounds like both sides want this to conclude sooner rather than later. And the market's saying, okay, cool, we'll take that in stride. And that's why you have equities popping, crypto popping, and then energy falling. To be fair, I can completely understand why this is really seemingly confusing. I mean, we have missiles literally flying across the sky, and then yet the market's going up. And yeah, you're completely right, especially when we get all this from mainstream media. Iran and Israel announce more strikes as conflict enters the 4th day. And this is just one of many. It doesn't take much if you want to end up doom scrolling. But yet, when this is all happening, it is kind of interesting. Oil prices fall more than 1% on signs that Iran wants ceasefire with Israel. In fact, by the end of the day, this number more than doubled. So yes, it is in one vein being reported how bad the conflict is, and yet in another vein, it's being reported that it might be ending soon or both sides want it to end, and then the market is literally just taking that little silver lining of hope and absolutely running with it. I have to admit, it is insane that one trading day later, we're already back green and we're this far away from a new all-time high. It obviously goes without saying that if you're an active trader, you gotta pay attention to that particular narrative, because depending on which way it does or doesn't break means we could have a nice bullish continuation or a complete bearish reversal. But that's not the only thing you got to be paying attention to in the short term. As I alluded to at the beginning beginning of this video, that's the war, but don't forget we're also in a trade war, and this week we have the G7 summit. Leaders at G7 summit talk trade with Trump. Canada's Carney, others hope FaceTime with president leads to breakthroughs. So basically, all of these particular trading partners who are there are all really wanting to speak with the US to get a deal locked in before the new early July deadline in terms of the trade war. So that's the second major storyline you got to be paying attention to this week, but there is one more. So yes, tomorrow morning, an hour before the market opens, we're going to be getting the retail sales number, but the big thing of this week, at least on the macroeconomic calendar, is the FOMC meeting. That comes out at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, June 18th, and then at 2:30, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, will be speaking. As of this moment, as of the moment that I'm filming this video, the Fed funds rate is currently at 4.25%, and there's a 99% chance that we get no change. Not hiking it, not cutting it. In fact, the real time we have a chance of some rate cut isn't going to be until September of this year, so even skipping over the July meeting. So yes, this is not for tomorrow, the 17th. This is all going down on the 18th, so please pay attention to that. And then that leads us into potentially an early weekend where we're going to have the market close on Thursday in observation of Juneteenth, and then Friday, I know a lot of you will be taking off, but there is some manufacturing numbers coming out to close out the week. So in terms of major things going on, yes, we have craziness, chaos. It's very sad of what's going on with Israel and Iran, but the fact that we're getting early messages, especially from Iran's side, that they want to come and talk, well, the market is taking that and saying, oh, that's a bullish sign. Then we also have what's going on with G7, and right now people are hopeful. Granted, we haven't gotten any solidified details of any of these trade negotiations, but obviously the market is a little bit more hopeful than not. And then one complete unknown is what's going to happen this Wednesday. Yes, there's a 99% chance that there's no change to the Fed rates, but we don't know what Jerome Powell's going to say. Is he going to be dovish, hawkish, bullish, bearish? Is he going to say anything about Trump, or is he going to be a little bit more mature and really keep it all together? That is a giant unknown going down in the middle of this week. So pay attention to all of that. But for those of you who are interested in individual tickers, you got to check out AMD. AMD had a crazy good day, gaining almost 9%. Left last week around 116, today up to 126, and it was on a pretty bullish report. AMD shares rise 10% after analysts say they expect a snapback for chipmaker. Analysts at Piper Sandler wrote in a note today, Monday, that they expect a snapback for AMD's GPU business in the fourth quarter. That's when the analysts expect their chipmaker should be through the bulk of the $800 million in charges that AMD said it would incur due to exports to China. So that note enough got everyone very excited, and AMD, which for a while there was getting a lot of love, and then all of a sudden no one really started talking about it, well, it seems like it's back on the menu. And with that being said, I would love to know your favorite chip maker in a comment below. Are you paying attention to Nvidia, a top 3 stock in the entire world, currently number 2? Are you more interested in Avago, aka Broadcom, the second biggest chip maker? Or are you looking at something like AMD, Intel, ASML? In the world of chip makers and the related plays, which one is your favorite? Let me know in a comment below. Folks, that's what I have for you right now. This week is gearing up to be a crazy one. So as always, stick to your trading plan, respect your risk, and survive to fight another day in this marathon, this gauntlet that we call trading. That's what I have for you. I'll catch you in the next one.